All right, here we are. Another episode of Let There Be Talk. Today is Monday, March 18th. 3 days after my mom's 75th birthday. 75, my mom, rock and roller. Happy birthday, Mom. Little shout out to the original Del Razor rocker. Hope you guys are doing good. Great guest today. I know if you guys have been listening to the show, which I recently looked up, and I think it has actually been on over 7 years now. I was with my boy Billy Rowe, and when I looked up something, and I looked up some episode, and it was from 2012, February 20th or something like that. So this thing has been going on forever. How long do you do it for? Do you just keep going? I mean, what? Anyway, here we are. Great guest today. If you've listened to the podcast over the years, you know I absolutely love the band The Strokes. I feel like there was this incredible era of music in the 60s, and then smoking 70s rock. And then we got into the 80s. We got all kinds of great stuff in the 80s. And then the 90s, I used to clown on the 90s quite a bit. And then one day I Googled 90s music, and I was like, oh, so much great music in the 90s. But then I would say late 90s, there was this low in music. And I believe that it just kind of felt like there was nothing that was bursting onto the scene that everybody was like talking about. And that comes around, I would say, once every 10 or 15 years. Some band comes out and all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, are you listening to this? And then a whole new scene happens. And a lot of people my age, I'm 53, a lot of people, they don't seek that out. They just listen to the era that they grew up in, and then they constantly say, like, there's no good music anymore, man. When I was young, it was all about blah, blah, you know. But there's always good music. You gotta seek it out these days. It's out there. And a lot of people do rely on scenes, and they rely on press, and they rely on the old classic word of mouth. And I would say right around in 2000 or so, I was in New York City, and I met a girl at a sushi restaurant. She was waiting on me and my friend. Said her brother was in a band. They were called The Strokes. Got to check them out, The Strokes. I was like, sure, whatever. And in 2001, the Strokes record came out. And I definitely believe that year, music got a complete kick in the ass. The leather jackets came out, the guitars, the attitude, the drugs, everything was blowing up New York style. You had the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, you had Interpol, you had the Strokes, you had Kings of Leon, the White Stripes. This was a massive surgence of just talent and raw rock and roll. Just out of nowhere, it felt like. It just all of a sudden, I remember these bands were playing the Viper Room on Monday nights at this Camaro night that Josh Richmond would put on. And if you were a hot band up and coming, you would play on this particular night, and people knew, like, oh, this is the shit. This is going to be next. And in that couple year period, all these bands I named started to explode. And with a combination of early Coachella, this shit was incredible. And I think it was one of the greatest music scenes to happen, and very underrated right now. But you watch later on, everybody will be talking about it. But the Strokes really blew me away. And I became obsessed with him for a long time. I was still kind of playing music around that time. And I was like, wow, these guys fucking get it. Especially Julian, the singer. He just had that sense of danger, and he had it. What it was, you couldn't describe. It was just like, that's it right there. That's a front man. That's dangerous. That's original. He sounds cool. He looks cool. The women wanted him. The dudes wanted to be him. And that was it. They took off and they just smashed around the world. And then, of course, the Strokes are a lot like a lot of bands that I love. The part-time fans disappear, and then the real fans stick around and get to enjoy records like Room on Fire and First Impressions of Earth. These records are monumental in my rotation. So to get my guest on today, it's just a killer guest. For one, you know I love rock and roll photos, and two, you know I love rock and roll. So the combination of this guy, Cody Smith, being my guest today is just a home run because he went to high school with the Strokes, and he's a lot like, I say, Mark Cantor with Guns N' Roses. He was good friends with him, carried a camera everywhere, just started shooting organically because it was fun. And next thing you know, this band becomes one of the biggest bands in the world, and Cody shoots the first 10 years of all the monumental Strokes gigs. Talking about Radio City Music Hall with the White Stripes. I'm talking about their first Viper Room show, their 2 CBGB shows, the Troubadour. I'm talking about Philly when Oasis came to see him. All these gigs, he was there from the ground up. And he posts them in a book called The Strokes, the first 10 years, and they're all in chronological order. So it's really cool to see just a band from high school friends to where they are now. Even right now, they're giant. They're about to go out this summer, and I cannot wait to see them. Anyway, I am really fired up on this episode. I really love talking to Cody, and he's a great photographer, and I feel like this book needs to be completely promoted so everyone sees it. It's so cool. It's pure rock and roll. Just New York City oozing off these pages. And since I've spent the last 3 years in and out of New York, I always am fascinated by how I walk around New York and hear the Strokes in my head. And one of the stories he tells about them, he shows this photo, and I go, hey, that's like a block from where I'm staying at a diner that he used to hang out at. So it's really wild. Cody's mom was also a photographer and shot some rad photos at Johnny Thunders for some album covers. So there's some heritage there. Anyway, we'll get to the episode. Before we do, let's talk a couple quick things here. I'm going to go see The Dirt tonight. Motley Crue, The Dirt. I'm going to the premiere. Thank you, Nikki Sixx, for setting that up. I cannot wait, and I will be talking all about The Dirt on my Patreon bonus episode coming out on Thursday. If you want to join Patreon, it's patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. And I want to give a shout out to all the new Patreoners. Matt Rock, you badass. Travis Hogue. What's up, Travis Hogue? Jeffrey Reimer, and the mayor of the Del Raisers, Mark Brunot. That's right. Check it out. Patreon.com/Dean Del Rey for bonus episodes. I'll be talking about Motley Crue's new movie, The Dirt, on Thursday. Upcoming shows. Going to be in San Jose, March 30th at the Santa Clara Brewery, I guess it is. Check it out in my Twitter. All my dates are on DeanDelRey.com. Comedy Castle, April 11th through the 14th in Detroit. Las Vegas Comedy Cellar at the Rio Hotel, April 29th through May 5th. Paps Theater in Milwaukee with Joey Diaz, 420. A second show has been added. And me headlining La Jolla Comedy Store, June 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Those are some of the shows coming up. Hope to see you guys out there and show your love. All right, here we go. Episode number 465. Can you believe it, kids? 465 episodes with the candles lit. Here we go. Cody Smith. All right, thanks for tuning in to another Let There Be Talk. Here we are, a fantastic guest today. Introduce yourself, my man.
Hey, Dean. This is Cody Smith, born and bred New Yorker. Meeting up with you for the first time.
Yeah, man.
Some stuff. It's really cool you had me on. You've had some heavy hitters on, so I appreciate you having a little guy like me.
I love the Strokes.
Yeah.
Always have. Been trying to get any of them on for 7 years now.
Right.
And to me, it's just been eluded, which is strange. I had Nick. I had dinner with him one night. He goes, "I'll do it." Yeah. He disappears.
He disappeared. Valenci, you know what? Valenci's my best friend. Him and I are like brothers. We were just texting before I got here.
Yeah.
Because once we do this and it's live, I'm gonna hit him up and be like, "Check it out."
Well, Julian is absolutely one of my favorite rock stars. I was just doing the Bennington show, Ron Bennington.
Okay.
And he hit me with something. He said, "Who do you think the last rock star was?" And, you know, we're not talking about the 70s biggies and 60s biggies.
Or even going into the 90s.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know.
To me, rock was pretty dead, and the last real jolt of rock, other than Josh Homme and Jack White, would be the Strokes, yeahs, and that whole wave of early 2000s.
Exactly. They really split it open for a lot of the bands we see now. I mean, even the Killers are still going strong, Kings of Leon. But yeah, no, it was cool being there to see this rise of some friends that I grew up with here in New York and met in high school in 9th grade go from this transition of local, trying to work it, just wanting to play fucking music in New York and not do anything else, and then go to that level and all of a sudden sort of being there with the ride for them in the journey and like, oh, it jumped up. And like your music, it's not just a scene or a jacket or a fucking Converse that's coming back. It's proper music and musicians who want good music.
And, it's shit. It's crazy to think about what was going on right before that was just kind of it was like a deserted island.
Yeah, and it was just MTV was big, and they weren't. Everything shifted. Yeah, and there was a need for something to happen again. You know, it could be that 10-year cycle I always sort of call back to. In the early '90s, it happened with those guys, and then it seems to be, but something was itching and ready, and these guys just happened to start doing it at the right time in New York, you know?
So were you going to school with these guys? What's going on? Because let me tell people what's going on here is you are kind of like the Mark Cantor of the Strokes.
Right.
I have Mark Cantor on, and he was a fly on the wall the entire from day one of Guns N' Roses.
Right.
Until they absolutely explode. And he shot a zillion photos of them and video.
Right.
And you're kind of that guy of the Strokes.
Yeah. Unintentionally is what it sort of turned into. I grew up, my parents were photographers here in New York as well. So I grew up in the photo industry along with musicians and filmmakers. My mom early on photographed Johnny Thunders for one of his albums and was friends with him. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So your mom was an actual legit photographer?
She was a legit photographer.
And you grew up in the city?
I grew up here in Manhattan. My father did the same thing. He was sort of in the photo darkroom side of things, but again, knew all these artists. Somehow was one of these guys that, Dave Kahan is a close family friend. So music was always just part of everything. So, yeah, when I started shooting, I got my first camera at 11, and I was just shooting my life in New York, just documenting it. And in about 95, I met Nick and Julian and Fab and Nikolai. And
where'd you meet him at?
We met him. I met at private school. We all met in high school. We were like 9th, 10th grade.
So you guys, those guys were like rich kids, right? Like Julian's dad was someone big in the fashion industry.
Julian's dad was he owned Elite Modeling Agency, which I didn't know when I met him. We were all just sort of scrappy kids sharing lockers next to each other and chain smoking on the bench at Central Park after school.
And which school was it?
It was Dwight, and it was on the Upper West Side. Yeah. So it was a mix of very wealthy kid and a mix of, some scroungers that got in there because they were good guys and had some good grades. And, that all sort of got weeded out as the years went on and we all parted from Dwight. But yeah, that first year in 95 when we all met, it became like an instant click for whatever reason. We just all gravitated towards each other, and
no band yet, right?
No
just
band,
high school buddies.
Nick was playing guitar, Valencia was playing guitar, Julian was playing guitar, Fab was playing drums already. I mean, they were practicing, and
but no band, just fucking around.
Yeah, just fucking around.
And what were you guys listening to? Obviously,
GNR, big time.
Wow.
Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Bob Marley, Blur. A little bit.
Blur, yeah. Oh, how about Oasis?
Yeah,
Any of that?
I mean, it was in there. It was, everybody sort of thinks, the Strokes
Verve?
listen to, a little bit. I mean, we grew up, that was sort of 91 was a little bit our era, even though we're on the younger side. We're 40-ish now, but still, that was still prominent in all our minds.
But you guys were listening to Guns N' Roses.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And that was 95.
That was 95. I mean, I remember buying Appetite, here in New York at a store called The Wiz in 87 when it came out. So I'm a diehard GNR fan. That's like,
yeah.
I just saw them play.
Yeah.
That's like going into a whole nother discussion.
But I like to hear that discussion because when you see the blueprint of the Strokes, of course, it's television, it's Lou Reed, it's all that. That first wave of New York.
Right. And that was what's interesting is that when that started getting compared, like we knew who Lou Reed was, of course, and we loved the Velvets and Lou, but like television, like we didn't know who the fuck television was, and we never listened to they'd never listened to television.
So where were they grabbing these influences?
I don't know. That's the funny thing is because it really was Pearl Jam, Guns N' Roses, Bob Marley, it really, really was. So it's,
do you think it was because of maybe like Julian's not like a crazy singer or whatever, so it was more of the monotonous vocal.
I think so.
That really made it have that vibe.
It was that stripped down raw sound again, which I don't know if they were intentionally going for it, to be honest with you, but that's the sound they liked. And yeah, it heralded back to that just New York time when it was, do it yourself.
Yeah.
And just going out and handing out flyers at every fucking club and just practicing.
So you guys are in school and then they start to get some instruments. At what point do they become the Strokes? And you're like, oh, you guys are a band.
Yeah, it was about 98 when Albert got to New York, In the book, it starts with us in high school, at lunches, in high school. Even some practice space shots, they would sometimes rent a practice space and we would just go and smoke joints, and they would practice.
Where did they practice at?
Random spots over on the west side. And then about 98, when Albert came in, they found a spot in this place called the Music Building on 8th Avenue and 38th Street, which a lot of bands practice at. So it was about 98. Albert came to New York. They were like, all right, we got a guy who's a guitarist. Nikolai was picking up the bass a lot more and started learning that. And I think that's when everybody was working on jobs or in college classes or whatever, and they were just like, all right, we're like, this feels like something now.
I remember early on, I met Nikolai's sister.
Right.
She was working at a place called Sushi Samba in Union Square.
Right.
And she goes, my brother's in a band. I was in love with this girl. She was beautiful.
Yeah,
I was like, what are you doing working in a sushi joint?
Yeah.
So I talked to her and she goes, yeah, you should check them out. They're called The Strokes.
Right.
I go, all right, I'll check them out. And that's how I get turned on to The Strokes.
Right.
Like way early on.
It's so cool.
I know. And I was mostly just in love with her. Like right at first sight, like this girl's beautiful.
Right. If she's going to be at the show,
I'll check out your Dumb Brothers band.
Right.
Anything for you to talk to me.
Right.
And then I hear the band and I'm like, wow.
It's legit. Yeah, no, I know.
So they get a studio.
They start practicing, playing some small shows here in New York, Acme Underground.
And are they The Strokes right away? Are they called that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, within a couple months, they pretty much figured out their name. You know, it was really sort of just natural. I think Nikolai came up with the name. But yeah, they just came up with that, and they were kind of surprised that no other band had that name, you know, because it sounded like such a band name that somebody would definitely have.
Well, and they had a great logo, too.
They had the good logo.
So you needed a good logo. Who did that, Julian?
Julian did the logo.
Yeah.
They got that going, and then, yeah, I just remember they were practicing non-fucking-stop.
No shit, huh?
Non-stop. I mean, hours.
Just every day? And were you hanging? Like you were just
I was hanging, taking photos. Sometimes I wouldn't taking photos. I'd get off work and be like, oh, we're at the music space. Come by, you know? So I saw that evolution of them starting to write all the first songs for Is This It and early shows.
Oh, man, that record.
Yeah. It was fun. It was probably in about, I think it was 2000, they played CBGB's. And there was a lot, that was sort of the first show where there was a lot of people I didn't know, you know, and it was packed.
Somehow they're gathering some kind of vibe. Is it more just at the time, just hipsters? I mean, this is pre-word hipster, but is it just more of kind of art people and people from school?
Yeah, it is.
What kind of people are into it?
Yeah, it was people like us, friends and other art kids, and the randoms that like, if somebody was going taking a class at Hunter, they would hand out flyers at fucking Hunter College to get kids down there. So it was just like they wanted people at the show.
Isn't that crazy to think that somebody as short time ago as 2000,
right,
a flyer could still get somebody their interest going?
Right.
Can you imagine that now?
It's such a different world. That's what I mean.
It's such a different world. And they were the last band really to sell records,
right,
and get an organic buzz and a super draw.
Absolutely.
And I think that also has to do with a lot of at that time, if there was girls at the gig, there was going to be guys, and that's the old formula from the 70s and 80s and all that. Beautiful wannabe models,
right,
and hip people smoking a little dope and going to these shows high, like, man, we're in New York,
right? Exactly, experiencing something and sort of feeling it. The funny thing was, it was all natural. It was that feeling of like, dude, we're sort of seeing something and feeling something, and there's definitely a new feeling in New York. You know, it was right before 9/11 as well, so. The city still was that old mentality. The whole world was that old mentality. It was pre-social media. So exactly with the flyers and shit.
Pre-social media. Just think about that.
No internet, really. That was, there's no streaming services. There's none of that shit. So, and I try and capture that in the book, sort of that innocence in New York before 9/11 and social media and that whole shift afterwards.
Pre-John Varvatos, CBGBs.
Exactly.
Also, CBGBs, I've had many people on here, and what people don't understand is CBGBs was done.
Yeah.
It was a place where a bunch of, like, kind of bringer bands, you know,
exactly.
Okay, you can play, you got to have, like, 20 fans come, and it was just a shell.
It was at that point. And the Strokes, they played there because it was CB's, of course. And I remember they played 2 shows there, and I write about it in the book and have a whole section of photos from it. But the second show they played there was a lot bigger. And the place was actually pretty crowded. And, they finished their set and they wanted them to play another song. And the fucking sound guy just like would not let them play another song. And meanwhile, some like other shitty, New Jersey fucking hardcore bands probably coming on. And the place just went nuts. And the sound guy literally got up on stage and started unplugging their shit. And I remember Julian just grabbed the mic and was just like, fuck CBGBs. And they just like sort of trashed the stage and the whole place emptied out. And that was it. And the next band had nobody there for them. And that was the last time they played CBGBs.
That's the early rumblings of starting to get into some danger, because I said what you need with a great rock band is you need some drug use,
right?
You need some danger, you need some mystique,
right?
And you need women and guys both into it. They had one thing that I couldn't believe the band got big without having, and that was a ballad.
Right.
Which was unusual, because usually the formula would be some dangerous rock, get the dudes in, and then about the third single, here comes the big ballad.
Right.
Now the women are on board. Right. Now we've got a monster. But they got away with it, kind of like Ramones or AC/DC.
They did.
Zero ballad.
They did. And it brought everybody in, you know.
So after the CBs, do you start going like, okay, the record company people are coming around, what's happening?
That's when interest started happening. I was still shooting them. I wanted to get a proper sort of group portrait of them. So we started doing that. They started traveling out of town more. It was Philly, Boston, DC. That started
with no
happening.
Record deal still, right?
Not yet. I think their EP might have just been starting to get finished.
And did they pay for that on their own?
They did, yeah. That's what I mean. They were just like working.
Well, they had plenty of money.
Well, that's the thing. You know what? That's the thing. I don't know. Yeah, I want to say two of them sort of came from a well-off family, you know. Yeah. Albert's father was a famous musician, of course, and Julian's dad was John Casablancas, who owned Elite Modeling Agency. But Nikolai and Nick and Fab came from really just working-class families like I did, you know.
Well, what I love about it is they're a lot like, I'm really tight with Jacob Dylan.
Right.
Obviously, there's money there, but work ethic... Exactly. Songwriting and fuck you, I'm not riding on your coattails.
Exactly.
Vibe, because I didn't know that Julian's dad, who he was, until later on, once the press starts riding on it. But I don't give a fuck what you come from. I've hung out with the richest people, and they've had more work ethic than a dirtbag, or I've hung out with rich people that are just garbage cans. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all.
It just matters who you are.
Yeah, exactly. You and your work ethic. And really, you know, I mean, listen, I can imagine the music industry is a fucking insane place. And seeing a little bit on tour with these guys, you know, in the later years when there's a lot more people around and the stress of being on tour for 6 months together hits in, and what it really does to friends who have been friends for 20 fucking years in a band. It's hard, but they've maintained a way, I think, of having this massive core fan base, and it grows. You know, I have a 17-year-old sister now, and I'm 41, who fucking loves the Strokes. So they have this broad thing of having people our age, you know, and even a little bit older. My father, who's 70, into them because it's rock and roll, but also younger kids. And it's rare, especially in this world, to have, you know, a rock and roll band come out 18 years ago, 20 years ago, and hold a little bit.
I remember the first time seeing them. I think it was Troubadour or Viper Room, one of those, something.
I was at that Viper Room show. There's photos in the book,
And I was like, what the fuck? I'll never forget it, because I was like, this is exact to me of early GNR, because I was there for early GNR.
See, so I wish.
I felt like an old A&R guy, and I even wrote like a kind of a treatment called the A&R guy for a TV show that I wanted to do, where I felt like I was an old burned out A&R guy, like it'll never happen again. I was here, you know, and then I see that and I'm like, wow, it was so legit. Leather jackets, drugs, women, and fierce danger, and great songs.
Yeah, I know. And that's what it always comes back to. The songs have to hold up. You can have all that fucking danger and all that shit.
Oh, yeah.
But the songs have to hold up. And they do. And
Well, if you don't have the songs, I can always tell it's fake Danger.
Right.
I can always tell everything's been fabricated.
Right.
Because they don't have the songs. So now the label's like, okay, one guy's going to be like, fight people out at a club. The other guy, he's going to be missing.
Right.
There's all this bullshit.
Right.
And you're like, oh, well, they got no songs. That's why we're hearing about all this.
Yeah. No, and they they controlled it themselves. They could have been an arena band, and they could have gone like the Killers or the Kings of Leon and done, but there was a very intensive purpose, I think, that they didn't do that, But again, it says something where they can't release an album in how many years now? And they're about to tour again this summer in festivals, and they can come back and people still want to see them. So it's a rare thing. And I think at this point in the game, they realize that, they're all doing solo projects, but
Julian's solo stuff.
it's great.
It's fantastic.
I know.
I mean,
good. Valenci's doing some awesome solo. His CRX stuff is really cool too.
But that Julian of the Voids, that shit is the last one that came out
great.
like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's good, I know.
And that kind of stuff eats me up too. When you look at the body of work of the Strokes, it's a lot like all these bands I love, like say the Black Crowes. And I've said it 1,000 times on the show when people go, yeah, I love the Strokes. Whatever happened to them? And it's just like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like nothing happened to them.
They put out great records.
I mean, Eddie Vedder's playing solo shows every year, and it's just like, what happened to nothing fucking happened.
Yeah.
It's the way it should be done, I think, and it's a smart way to do it, Yep. You should be doing your own solo stuff, The Strokes are with their old friends, it's got to be hard after 25 years.
Yeah.
Shit gets involved when you're together around each other. So
especially when some drug habits happen.
Exactly.
That really gets crazy. I mean, Albert, I had no idea that he was that far out until he, talked about it.
Talked about it, yeah.
And I was like, wow, this shit was legit.
Yeah.
He's like locked up in some house up in Woodstock or whatever, and they go get him out of there. You're like, oh, this guy has some demons.
Yeah, it's like real stuff. I know.
So they put the EP out.
They put the EP out themselves, They started playing around. I think somehow it got mailed to Rough Trade in England, and they picked it up.
That's where they get big.
And that's where it really, really, really took off. I can't remember if they went to England and came back. And it was around August 2001. They were doing a residency at Mercury Lounge here in New York every weekend or something. And one of the shows, the AC went out, I remember, and it was August, and it was so fucking hot in that place. And they were spraying, at the time they were spraying the city for West Nile on the streets. They had cars going down the street just spraying fog in the air to kill all these mosquitoes.
Oh.
So it was coming into the club. So a lot of people backed out. But that show at Mercury Lounge, and we still talk about that show, even those guys, holds a definitive moment of where it just seemed to jump up after that. I don't know if it was the heat or the spray in the air that came in or the way they performed, but it was pure fucking rock and roll that night. And after that, we all kind of saw the big
it's
jump.
like GNR Night at the Ritz.
Right, exactly.
So when you see that, which I think is one of the few times you could ever captured Danger on film, because usually when you watch bands, you're like, yeah, those guys are good. But when you watch that, you go, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So that was like their definitive moment.
For us, it was, yeah.
Right.
For us, it was. It felt like that. And then it just jumped up after that. And then it started taking off.
Well, there was a formula in 2000 around there where rock bands were leaving L.A. and New York and going to Europe and touring and getting big. So it was Strokes did it. Kings of Leon did it.
Right.
And then recently, up in the last 5 years, Rival Sons has done the same thing.
Right.
You get big over there, playing in front of 30, 40, 50,000 in these festivals, and eventually the word starts to catch here. It's almost the opposite of Brit rock back in the day, Beatles and everybody coming here getting famous.
I was going to say, exactly. Yeah, and which was weird to us because, it's not like Britain initially it wasn't like that much music was coming over at that era, in 2000 from
not at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So Yeah, so they went over there and just fucking blew up, and then...
Well, they fucking looked great, too.
They looked great.
So when you saw a poster of them, you were like, look at those guys.
I know, those guys from New York City. And
they put the leather jacket back on the map.
Exactly. But that's how they just dressed, you know?
Yeah.
That was the thing. It wasn't like a stylist or anybody fucking doing it. It was just dudes getting dressed in the morning. And
what are they on, RCA, right?
they were on RCA.
And they put out Is This It?
Is This It? And then they followed it up a year or two later.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean,
Fire.
Is This It? I think MTV actually did a concert.
They did. They did a $2 bill.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
And yeah, and I think, you know, from what I heard, MTV wanted them to really, really come in. You know, they wanted to have them be a front runner, you know, or face of the new MTV. And I think purposely they didn't do it for whatever reason.
Well, they were wise. They were.
Yeah.
Once you get a buzz going, I was just talking to somebody about this on the phone today. People don't understand. There's artists, and then there's like I never used the word sellout because sellout is what we all have to do now to fucking even eat.
Exactly.
But there's a difference between what people want to do and control their destiny.
Right.
If you're going to shoot out of the cannon, you got to drop down a few seconds later.
Right.
I'd rather take a slow plane ride.
So would I.
And also, if I was big right now, I wouldn't be on social media.
Right.
I wouldn't be on any kind of platforms. I just have my podcast and my shows. And if you want to see me face to face, that's how you got to do it.
That's how you got to do it. Yeah.
And they were wise to pull back because the buzz was fucking fierce.
Yeah, I know.
And I know when it's fierce. When I'm in LA and there's a band that's got a buzz, it rumbles down the strip still like old world. Dude, you're going to see, so you know, like if it's at the Echoplex now, back then it was a lot of stuff that was at Spaceland.
Right.
That was the spot.
That was the spot. I remember, yeah.
And then Viper Room on Mondays when all these bands would play like Kings of Leon and Strokes and all them on the Camaro night.
Right.
Kind of would break these bands. And it was insane to see an old school last hurrah of massive bands coming out of it. Because look who came out of all that.
Yeah.
What's that? Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yes. Kings of Leon.
Interpol.
What's that?
Interpol.
Oh, first two records.
You know.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what I
Until
mean.
the bass player, Carlos, leaves. And it's like, see you later, that band.
Exactly.
I've never seen a band crumble from a bass player leaving.
I know.
Ever.
I know.
And then and I never jumped on this band, but they rode in on it. Jet.
Yeah, right.
They were there.
That's what I'm saying. It was like all of it just started so fucking much.
And it's all from the Strokes.
Yeah.
All from the Strokes. I don't give a fuck what anyone says.
I agree. I mean, I hold the Strokes and the White Stripes to fully usher in the next generation
100%.
of rock and roll. And
White
it was the
Stripes.
last sort of generation of rock and roll that we've had now.
And those were the two. And yeah. I thought Karen O was probably one of the greatest front persons I've ever seen in my life.
She was, yeah.
So they get the deal. They're blowing up.
They're blowing up, and from there it just becomes, you know,
lunacy.
Yeah, more celebs backstage, more.
And are you shooting all that?
Yeah, photographing stuff, but also, yeah, I did a fine line of photographing when I knew it was appropriate to photograph.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. A lot of drugs around.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's. We were kids growing up in New York that they became big, and I was lucky enough, you know, for them to, you know, I could see how it'd be easy for a band, whether you've been friends for 10 years, 20 years or not, once they get to a certain level and you have this person and these people and models and fucking Eddie Vedder and whoever else wants to show up and see you, it could be very easy to push old friends aside.
Was that happening?
No. It did not. No, it became very closer is what happened. You know, it was never, we were such close friends and we still are. There was never any of that. Well, Cody's with his camera. Like he's going to get something that we don't want because they knew I wouldn't do that.
Well, you got total trust. I get
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
And when you're good friends, you know what to shoot and what not to shoot.
Exactly. You know,
I've been around some of the biggest stars, and sometimes I'm a lunatic, but I know when to dial it down.
Right. And a lot of the times too, I just wanted to fucking hang out.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I wanted to just remember it. You know what I mean? It's cool, and I captured as much as I could, but there's a lot of just in my brain that I wanted to just be there. You know. Yeah, I'm doing whatever with whoever, you know. But,
were you shooting film?
Yeah, it was all film.
And what was it?
Most of the book is film, 35 millimeter, most of it.
But what camera?
It was a Nikon FM2 that my father got me. And then later on, it sort of went into a Pentax 6.7, which is a bigger frame camera. But it was all film, and I would just shoot the guys or go out on tour with them and come back. And my father owned a photo lab, so then I'd run to his photo lab,
whoa, that's
develop
great.
the film, process it, see what I got, start making up little prints and bring it back and show it to the guys.
Was it hard to shoot moving fast rock and roll? Did you have to figure that out? Because, you know, when people are moving, you got to adjust the whole camera.
You got to adjust to it. It took me a little while, but once I saw their stage formation and they had it down, and, you know, I knew moments in the songs where they were going to kick in or something was going to happen.
Well, you know it all from seeing the show.
Exactly. Seeing the show and just being in rehearsals or hearing it so much, I just sort of knew. And then it transformed to like, all right, I got enough live shit. I don't want to be a live photographer. I want to take portraits. I want to take pictures. And so I tried to do that, go around, get them all individually. And then, yeah, just keep documenting as much as I possibly could with no intention of making a book for myself or for them any day, but this is where it is, and I'm gonna go
through it a little bit.
They were really
look at some photos.
Excited, and I mean, they were really, really happy that I got approached to do the book, and we're just on board with it 100%. And
who approached you?
An old family friend started working. He used to work at MTV Books, and he left, and he started this new upstart called Lesser Gods. And they were doing a lot of rock and roll autobiographies and some photo books. And he wanted to see what I had. And I just showed him a little bit, and he was just like, dude.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you've got something here that nobody else has, you know? So it started with that, and then just sort of scanning every fucking negative, personal and strokes related, that I had of all of us throughout the years.
How many you got, you think?
I mean, I don't know. It's hundreds,
yeah.
You know? And there's a lot of personal stuff that didn't go in the book.
That of you guys?
Of us, yeah, just for whatever reason, whether it was when Fabrizio was dating Drew Barrymore or stuff like that, that as we were making the book, we would put it in there if it fit and then show it to the guys like, dude, can you take that one out? And it's not really a strokes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was that fine line of letting people into the bands because they are a private band and not much is really known or been photographed about them, I think.
Yeah. I remember they did the record release at the Troubadour, second record.
Right.
And the next morning I was on Sunset Strip on my motorcycle. I was at the show, and this root beer brown Porsche pulls up next to me. Window goes down. Guy goes, sweet bike. And I look, and it's Fab. And I'm like, fuck, you guys killed last night. I couldn't even believe it was him. I was like, life is so fucking weird. Look, I got goosebumps thinking about it because it was so weird.
Yeah. It's, you know, the other thing about the band, too, and those guys is that it seems that everybody I sort of meet or know, or we end up that have mutual friends somehow in this music industry or art world have a stroke story, you know?
Oh, yeah. I think it was Root Beer Band. It might have been Black, but whatever. He had a brand new Porsche.
He had some new Porsche.
I think Drew bought it for him. Right. And I was like, that guy's a winner.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
There. That guy's a rock star.
Yeah. And it was cool seeing them. They were happy. You know what I mean? Like, they were just like, nobody could sort of believe that they were
absolutely
in that spot. But
where's he live? In France now, I heard?
He was in France. The last time I saw him a couple months ago, he was back in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So he's back in Brooklyn. All over the place.
I'm going to open this up a little bit. First of all, one of the gods did the forward on this book, Nick Rock, who is the god of the first wave of New York rock and roll photography.
That he is.
And one of the coolest guests I've ever had on.
You've had him on?
Of course.
I've been assisting Mick Rock for like 18 years. I was just with him the other day.
Oh, dude, he shot photos of me at the same spot where he shot Bowie at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Oh, shit. I'm going to go back.
I interviewed him there.
Mick has become a very good friend over the years. Very, very good
So you work with Mick Rock now?
I've been assisting, along with shooting. You know, I shoot myself. I have assisted photographers over the years, but I've been assisting. Mick is the only photographer I sort of still assist, but we've been working together since 2001.
Wow, that's incredible.
So it's this whole... I've been with him as he sort of went into this new resurgence of his career.
Yeah. How about that guy's life?
Yeah, I mean...
I don't even know how he's alive.
I know. He's had quite a story. And
great documentary.
The documentary on Netflix is great. And just the body of work that Mick has shot and gotten is so important to the history of photography and music as well, I feel.
Who are some of your guys? Like Mick Rock, I love Jim Marshall.
Danny Clinch, I love. Anton Corbin.
Yeah.
Old school guy that I love.
How about Glenn Eade Friedman? I just had on yesterday.
I was looking at that.
Oh, man.
That's what I mean. You know, I was lucky enough to be with these guys, you know what I mean? And I have this. And unfortunately, it's the only band that I documented like
it doesn't matter, though.
I know it doesn't.
You were around one of the greatest eras I consider. I'm telling you, I can't tell you how much I love the Strokes. And I'm pretty stunned. In my life, I feel like a Forrest Gump. I've been able to roll in scenes and with all the people eventually through, mutual friends. All of a sudden, I thought for sure I would end up on some weekend with Julian somewhere. With stories, because they opened for the Stones.
Yeah,
and I was on that run.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to work for the Stones.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and the Stones were having like some cool. Were you out there?
I didn't go to that one. No.
Yeah, but the Stones had like the yeahs that year.
They were doing that. Yeah.
The Darkness.
Yeah, right.
They had the darkness out there. All right, let's look through some of the photos. Now, people, get this book. It's The Strokes, The First 10 Years.
Yeah.
And it is it's a collection of the first photos I'm looking at are insane.
It's a 20-plus year document of us as friends and the guys. Yeah, starting way back in 95 and sort of going through now.
The first photos almost looks like it's from the 50s. If I didn't see an Adidas jacket, sweat jacket. I mean, this looks like an old photo from Joy Division.
That's what I mean. It's sort of, and I think the film adds to that and the innocence maybe of youth. And again,
these high school photos are nuts.
I was just shooting. It was like,
I
didn't even know what I was trying to shoot besides us as kids. And
early Julian definitely looks grunge.
Yeah.
He's almost like he just rolled out of Pearl Jam.
That's what I mean. That's
Holy
why
smokes.
we were like heavily influenced by that. So it's weird.
I wonder if he loved Mother Love Bone.
We listened to the Green River.
That's the shit.
We listened to we still do.
All right, describe this photo here. It's an early photo.
This is an early black and white photo. This is New Year's Eve, 1999, going into 2000. They weren't known yet, to be honest with you. I don't think. We were just hanging out at Julian and Albert's house. It was after midnight. We went to this diner. In fact, right over here on 23rd.
Dude, this is next to my house.
I was about to say.
This is a block away. I eat here all the time. The Lyric Diner.
Exactly. It was
what the fuck? They're open all night.
That's what I'm saying.
They got a mean omelet there.
They do.
I can't even believe this is a block from where we're at right now.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Holy shit.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
It brings in New York. You know what I mean? It does.
My
it
God.
captures that sort of feeling of us as kids running around the streets.
Yeah, this is so cool. Shout out to Steve Rose, who
big time.
Who turned me on this, because when did this book come out? I'm a huge fan, and I have no idea about this book.
It's slowly gaining. It came out October of 2017.
God damn, it needs to be way more known.
I know. We're trying to get
this
it out
photo.
there.
What's up with this photo?
So this is the first time I got the guys for a group portrait. They were going to Philly. I was just like, dudes, I need to get, like, you're blowing up. We don't have any group picture, you know, I need to get it. So
yeah.
they were outside their music space, leaving for Philly.
That was the rehearsal hall?
Yeah. That's their van in the background with all their equipment in it.
Did they own a van or did they rent it?
They just rented it, you know? They just rented it from a fucking place. And then
I can't believe how young
Philly.
they are.
I know. And I shot some pictures. I shot a roll of film. And they're like, all right, do you want to come? And I was just like, yeah, fuck it. I got nothing to do tomorrow. So I just hopped in the van.
Oh.
We went down to Philly. And the Gallagher brothers showed up to the tiny show. They were playing at...
The Gallagher brothers?
Yeah.
Really?
Leo.
Oasis?
Yeah.
What the fuck were they doing
They
there?
were playing Philly at whatever big arena.
And they knew about this band?
Apparently they fucking did. I mean...
That's
we were
insane.
They were playing a tiny club in an alleyway in Philly. And somehow those dudes showed up.
Oh my!
Started hanging out with us. We were like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Did you get photos of that?
Yes and no. They're a little blurry. You know what I mean? Like,
I can't believe those guys showed up.
It was weird.
I mean, they had to know them because England, rough trade, and everything's so hip.
Somehow,
Yeah.
somebody at their show.
I mean, that's how you know you're doing something right. If Oasis shows up at your fucking gig, at a club gig, and you don't even have a record deal yet.
Exactly.
This photo, okay, now we're in the
CBGB's bathroom. This is after a show. We were just hanging out. And
this is all CB here, first gig?
All CB's first gig.
Kind of looking at the early outfits. And it's funny because when you look at it, they were just kind of had their look right out of the gate.
Right. You can see it, you know, how it's early on, but...
You really can see it. So they only played there twice, and you got photos from both?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Irving Plaza.
So you see it starting to get bigger.
Yeah.
You know.
And this is all in chronological order?
It is, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I wanted to... God, their jackets were great.
Yeah.
And it was all about fucking Julian to me. It was like, who is that guy?
I know. He was holding it.
Well, I mean, they scored with that guy.
Yeah.
Were you around... At the first kind of rehearsals, were you thinking like, I don't know about this sound? Were you thinking that because nobody was really doing that sound where you're like, I don't know about the music?
You know what? Probably not, because I was used to us sitting in our fucking bedrooms playing guitar.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it didn't... No. The whole thing just seemed like a natural progression. It just seemed like everybody was growing, and that's... No, I didn't. But it would be once they were doing proper rehearsals and they do a song and be like, "That's like, dude, that," you know?
Yeah.
That's where you're on it. You're on it. Take that riff and make it longer, and you know, even then they would ask my opinion. Again, I know how to play guitar a little bit. I'm not a musician, but
right. Oh, Hammerstein Ballroom.
So Hammerstein. This is after September 11th, 2001. Yeah. This is October. The city was fucked up. The world was fucked up.
Yeah.
But this was the biggest show.
Just a month after September 11th.
Yeah. It might have still been in September, actually. I'm not sure.
Man.
Yeah. It was really raw.
And they didn't cancel the show. They just did it.
They did. It was their first major big headlining New York show like this.
And did it sell out?
It did, yes. As a matter of fact, it was on Halloween of 2001.
Oh, shit.
Because now I remember the Moldy Peaches opened up for him.
Uh-huh.
And it was an awesome fucking show. That was an awesome show.
Oh, man.
So that day I went to sound check and just photographed
Shot some sound check.
Stuff.
Julian in a Batman shirt.
And
he looks so young here.
That's what
How old was he there? I can't even remember. Well, how old were you guys?
41, 40. God, we're going back 18 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Jesus,
25.
Man. That's wild. Okay, let's spin through.
SNL.
Oh,
played on
SNL.
Saturday Night Live.
Oh, shit.
So I went up to that to see them during rehearsal and just hang out.
SNL, Radio City Music Hall.
And then you get to Radio City Music Hall 2002 with the White Stripes.
I mean, come on, man. Yeah. Look, I got some goosebumps.
That's what I'm saying.
You got to think, you're a New York City band. You go from playing CBGB's to this
Radio
City Music Hall, man.
It's like,
I mean, come on. Were they feeling it, or were they just kind of numb?
No, I mean they were in shock a little bit. Yeah, they were. It was all smiles,
Look at this photo. The Strokes and the White Stripes. You don't get a better bill than that.
It was a historic show.
And how monstrous was White Stripes at that time. Those guys, I couldn't even believe what was coming off the stage. After that, all these two-piece bands, I was like, I don't give a fuck about any of this.
It's not the same.
And now,
Jack and Meg had something special.
Was insane. Yeah. I really couldn't believe it. And to see those bands together at Radio City Music Hall.
It was a historic show for us, for sure. So during that show, I wanted to start getting sort of portraits of the guys or individual shots of them. So I took Albert downstairs to the bathroom at Radio City.
Oh, that's cool.
And we just did a roll of film in the bathroom.
Oh, this is great. The two of us. This is almost kind of like The Shining.
Yeah, exactly.
This is fantastic.
So we just did some of those. He still loves these fucking pictures to this day.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I'm glad that...
Any prints do you sell?
I do sell prints. There's my website, codysmith.com. See some other
I gotta have one of these. I gotta figure out what one. Oh, Palladium with Kings of Leon.
Kings of Leon. This goes into 2003. This is the same. Yeah, this is 2003. Second record.
Yeah, after the Troubadour record release, they come back. They play.
They play Palladium and Viper Room. This is the same.
Yeah.
Shows the
Viper Room. I saw the Viper Room.
There's pictures in here from the Viper.
Wow.
So Palladium, the Shrine.
Whoa, here's Viper Room. What? I wonder if you could see me in here. That would be great.
That'd be awesome.
I was actually in the DJ booth.
Were you?
Yeah, because it was like a sweat box.
It was hot, yeah.
And then they do Felt Forum.
Exactly.
Wow, Felt Forum. So they just blown. Now, did they ever headline the Garden?
They did in 2011.
Oh,
is when they finally.
When they got back going. Yeah. Wow. Now, did Julian ever get married?
Yeah, he's married.
Is he?
He's got some kids, I believe. Valencia here is married.
And then are they all living in New York now? Not Nick.
Nick's out in LA.
Yeah, I see Nick.
The rest of them, I think are here.
Wow, that's wild. What a book here, man.
Oh, thanks.
What a book. And
I also, there's 3 chapters in there that I wrote for the book, so it sort of tells a little bit of my side of what was happening throughout the tours and the years and
drama-wise, or just what was going on with you?
We left some of that out. I did write a lot of that shit. Yeah. I wrote a lot. And that's what I was saying about that fine line of personal, but how personal do you go? Right. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It's funny because when you're behind the curtain, I leave so many stories out of my life because those are just for me and my friends.
Right.
But you think about, I don't even think I would put them out on my deathbed.
Right.
I think there's just things that are just so magical that you keep them to yourself.
You do.
I think most people that do a tell-all are they've been burned somehow, or they feel they're jaded, or they feel like I'm owed something.
Right.
And I've never felt like that. I always felt like I can't believe I'm here.
That's how I felt too, Dean.
Absolutely.
It's the exact same way I felt. And I'm here, and look at my friends, and look at how fucking, as they were growing as musicians, I was trying to grow as a photographer, and we all fed off each other, and to this day, we're very much family and really close.
Yeah. And those are friends to the grave.
It's like you said, the personal stuff, sometimes you just want to sort of keep it in, and there's, as cool of a story as it is, or...
Yeah, it's almost cooler just to have it amongst yourselves. There's stories when I hang out with buddies and we bring them up and we're like, I can't even believe that,
I mean, Valencia and I have some years on us, and we've done some shit.
Yeah. I
love that kid, I do.
Yeah,
that's a brother.
That's so funny. Now, are you still shooting bands and stuff, or what are you doing?
Shooting bands as much as I can, trying to take portraits, lots of personal work these days. I sort of have a full-time job at a photo studio.
Yeah.
So I do that. But, whenever they play, I shoot them.
They're going back out, I think, this summer, right?
They're going back out this summer, yeah. So I'm hoping it gives the book a little jolt because, like you said, it's been seen, but it hasn't been...
No, I'm going to spread the word on this book, buddy.
I'm trying to,
I'm going to spread the word on this.
It's got some life in it, you know. So we want to.
This is so good. Is that Tom Petty?
Yeah.
What's that about?
2011 was it?
Right.
I think they went on tour. They were doing their own solo tour down the East Coast, but they opened up for Petty on a couple of dates.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome, to be honest with you.
Oh, that is so cool.
Standing on side stage with Petty and Stevie Nicks. And
this looks like the Phoenix Hotel, right? Oh, no, that's Sunset Marquee.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I know the spots.
Exactly.
I've been there.
See what I mean? So they got like this New York City kid out to LA too, and I have this big appreciation for LA now. So it's
I think LA and New York are equally cool.
They're hand in hand.
Equally have the greatest historic moments of rock.
They do.
Wow, this
photo is from my 18th birthday.
Your 18th birthday, I'm looking at this. The photo is dated January 1996, and to me, it almost looks like the GNR Mark Cantor at Cantor's.
Right.
But it's like you guys are recreating that, but don't even know it.
Exactly.
Now,
that's so funny you said that. This is at the White Horse Tavern here in the West Village. It's my 18th birthday.
Cigars.
My dad got us all cigars.
Look at you guys. Look like just fucking. You look like college, like off the college guys. You know what I mean?
Man, we were so. I mean, my stepmother found this photo right before the book was sort of going to print.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and I was just like, this has to end the fucking book. It has to.
I mean, look at Julian.
Julian's a baby. The only person
Nick
who wasn't
looks normal.
I know.
All of you guys look like you look like a take out of one of those, frat boy movies.
Right, except we're the ones like
some kind of bad vacation or bachelor party movie.
We were.
Who is this? You?
That's not me.
Oh,
that is actually a good friend of ours. This is a good friend, Claude.
Yeah.
Who writes in the book, and he grew up with all of us as well. In fact, he met Julian way earlier than I met Julian.
Oh my God,
so
Claude.
That's Claude Rene Francais.
Dude, what kind of cool name is that?
It's awesome, I know.
He's from the 30s.
Exactly.
Dirt Claude. Did you guys call him Dirt Claude?
No.
Oh, how did you not call him Dirt Claude?
That's awesome.
Who's coming? Dirt Claude's there.
Claude, that's awesome.
Oh my God.
He's sort of like me, another unbeknownst member of the group,
Right.
He wrote for the book as well, and he's a writer, so he added a little bit more of the.
Well, you got a beautiful book here, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show today.
Absolutely, thank you.
And where can they get this book? It's great.
They can pick it up on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Rough Trade.
You got a website with all your because I'd like to look through it and pick one classic for the house.
Yeah, CodySmyth.com. I got
and Smith is Smyth.
Exactly.
Everybody.
My family changed up. You can go on there, see my other work. You can see prints for sale.
You got a Instagram?
I do have an Instagram. It's Ace Smith.
Ace ACE.
Yeah.
Ace Smith.
SMYTH.
Okay.
Same thing on Twitter.
And you got some rock photos on there?
I do. Yeah, lots of other rock and roll and some hip hop and lots of other work. Yeah, there's lots of other work.
What kind of hip hop you shot? Newer or older?
Kanye. Yeah, newer. Kanye.
Yeah.
Alicia Keys.
What do you listen to now?
These days, I'm trying to think of the last thing I'm listening to. I'm still the type of dude that's going back and finding hidden Dylan tracks and shit.
Yeah.
Hip hop seems to me a little bit more these days.
Yep.
It depends who it is. Kendrick. I like Lil Wayne a lot.
Yep.
But I still rock all the classics.
I don't understand how all you guys came out of that school and you guys are all like good looking. What the fuck's up with that school?
Something happened. I know. We put some abuse on us. I'm looking at you.
There's no dirt. There's no fucking garbage. No garbage. There's no me in the mix.
I don't know how it happened, but somehow we're still a little clean. I know. It's crazy.
Something in the water up in the west side.
Something, yeah. This Manhattan kids.
Holy shit, man. That is and are your parents still alive?
My parents are still alive.
Your mom still shoot, or what's she do? Retired?
She's retired. Father's retired. He still shoots. My dad a little bit. My mom too, but they're sort of retired in that world now. I'm next generation bringing it up, and
well, maybe maybe one day we'll get Julian on this goddamn show.
I'm going to talk to Valenci, too. I'm going to tell him to...
Julian's the gold for me,
Julian's the one you want.
I think he's like one of the greatest of that I've ever seen.
Right.
As far as being authentic, great lyrics.
Yeah.
Great performer by doing nothing.
I know.
It's so hard to do.
It's very hard to do.
So hard to be a star and not move around.
I know, but he does it really well. He's such a cool guy. I mean, Julian, I haven't seen him in a while. It's been a second since him and I. He's the most elusive, I want to say, out of the guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I like about him.
Yeah, no, and it's fun. And he's like that with everybody.
He's just kind of a Howard Hughes.
Right. It's not just like me. It's like that with everybody. But you know, anytime I see him, it's big hugs and big smiles and like, dude, I miss you. And Julian was one of those guys that it was interesting seeing him go from that progression of what you see in this book at the beginning, that young sort of
that's wild,
kid,
right?
You know,
to see the innocence there,
to come up, and he's grown as a musician and as a band leader and multiple ways, you know.
I'm looking forward to seeing him this summer.
Yeah, his shows are really good.
I can't wait to see those guys and hit up Nick. I'll be in LA next week. That fucker. 2 years ago, we spent a night there. And I go, oh fuck, and he's putting out a solo record.
He
I go,
does. It's really good. Yeah, CRX is awesome. He's my boy, man. I'll champion anything Valenci fucking does. I love that guy.
Thanks a lot, man, for doing the show.
Dean, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh hell yeah! I want to get the word out. Anything Strokes, I'm in.
Yeah, they have their place. So I'm lucky to be there with them and humbled by
great book. Oh, one last thing. How did you pick the cover? Because they're such an arty band, and it's such a statement.
We went off of their designs for their albums. The yellow and the black is sort of New York for taxis, crosswalks.
Yeah. But
yeah, the designer Gabe, he really we wanted to have something that looked similar to something that they would do. It's
definitely got that vibe, like their second album cover.
So exactly. So that's what we tried to do with it, is make it really this personal thing that's as close to what we want people to see as possible. And
awesome,
go
man.
check it out.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys, get the book. It's called The Strokes, The First 10 Years, and by Cody Smith, Smyth. Follow him, A Smith, on Instagram and Twitter. And get yourself some photos out there in your house and wake up to some of these photos each day on your wall or something, man. Yeah. It's just so inspirational. I just love rock photos. I'm a nut job on them. I tried to do a little justice, and I think the film keeps it going, but I'm happy to be, God, that one, the first one before Philly, I think that's the one. Yeah. Oh man, it's great to see this career, and I love how you did it all in order. You just see it start to build from shitty little clubs, right? That diner next to my place here,
right? That's what I mean.
To CBGB's, to Saturday Night Live and Radio City Music Hall,
Madison Square Garden.
Did you shoot the Garden?
Yeah.
Oh, how was that?
You know what? I shot more video footage of the Garden. Actually,
how was the Garden?
It was awesome. Wow. That was it. Radio City was cool, but years later at the Garden was just like, we were like, dude, we saw the circus here as kids. Yeah. Like the Knicks play here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that was like...
Yeah, like I did the LA Forum opening for Bill Burr a few months ago.
Dude, that's cool.
And I'm like, Zeppelin, 7 fucking nights.
Right, exactly.
It's Stones, 75.
I know. It's in those moments where we're lucky enough to be in this world and around people. That,
can't even believe it.
I know.
Can't even believe it. The venues are as iconic or more iconic than the bands.
Exactly. And it's humbling. It really is. It's humbling to have me on and be around for all of it. So.
Oh, thank you, man. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And go out there and listen to some Strokes. If you haven't listened to them in a while, like, wonder whatever happened to them, and get some tickets and see this damn band. They are absolute fire, and they will always be fire with me. Thank you for tuning in.